we go. So, hello and welcome back to the 30-Second Success Podcast, where clarity, courage, and connection come to life through the decisions that define us. I'm your host, Laura Templeton, and today we're here diving into the bold, messy, and meaningful moments that help us move forward in business and in life. So let's jump in. Today, I'm excited to bring Dale Dupree to you. Dale and I've connected through LinkedIn quite some time ago. I love following him. I love what he shares. He's very intentional about helping people become sales rebels of all things, right? So having the hard conversations doesn't have to be hard. And that's one of the things that Dale loves to teach us. So Dale, why don't you start us off with your 30-second message?
Yeah, 30-second message. My name's Dale Dupree. I believe that the sales world is broken and it needs rebellion. 6.5 years ago, I woke up from my corporate job. I actually had my socks and button-down shirt and my underpants on and walked in the kitchen and told my wife I'm going to quit my job, my cushy, high-paying job. I believe I have a calling on my life to buck the system and teach other people how to do just the same, to find happiness, freedom, peace, and ultimately fulfillment through themselves, their choices, and the community they surround themselves with. So we started the Sales Rebellion with that cause in mind. We put creativity above all things when we think strategically about sales and marketing. We put people above commission checks. We put community over profits, and we put the idea of fellowship over the concept of pitches or negotiation. And that's it. That's my 30 seconds. Hopefully I hit it right on time.
You did. And I think you answered my very first question, which is take us back to a 30-second decision that changed everything for you, right? What happened in that moment? But what came next? So once you made that decision, what came next for you? How did you know what direction to move in?
I had no idea. So it's a really good question. I really didn't. I started this company with like literally no direction. I just knew that I had a calling on my life to help other people outside of just myself. I was good at teaching. I was before this, I was helping people do exactly what we do at the Sales Rebellion, but through my organizations that I worked with. So Alex Dunham was my first protege. My manager slash VP of sales said, "Hey man, I'm going to step down from my role and I want you to take it. So I want you to put your hat in the ring as quickly as you possibly can for the role. And I'm going to recommend you to the ownership," which the ownership loved me. So they were happy to accommodate, not interviewing anybody else and just giving me what was being recommended, right? But which I'm super grateful for. Those guys are people that provided for me and my family greatly. But Alex Dunham was my first hire, and a great guy. I say his name because if you're out there and you want to follow somebody with good sales content, family man in the SaaS world, go check out Alex Dunham. But also, he was a bagger at Publix, and then had carried the water at a copier company, made absolutely no money, was better off at Publix kind of thing, and went to work for a publication company, actually a news company, and doing sales, for advertising for them. And I scooped him up and we turned him into a six-figure guy, and I say we, but I turned him into a six-figure guy at the company I was at within 90 days. And so I sat back and said to myself, all right, it's not all about money, but if I can provide freedom and success through finances where people can start to see like, wow, this like way of selling is different. And I can then tell them like, hey, well, so is your way of living. It will help these things as well too. And your belief system, the things you prioritize in your life, your family over your work, just like some very specific things that I went through with people and just said, to myself at that point, why don't I teach this? Why don't I teach this instead of just telling people like what I believe and who I am? Why don't I teach this and see if other people want to learn from me? So that was way over 30 seconds. So hopefully that's a good answer too.
It doesn't have to be within 30 seconds. I love a story. I love a story. So yeah, I only want the 30 seconds in the very beginning. So we'll dive in a little bit more, get more detailed. And I love what you're saying. And I think the freedom is so important. One of the things that I have found, and I don't know if you, and I'm sure you've seen this, especially with small business owners, they struggle with the sales conversation. They struggle with having that sales conversation, and yet they realize that every financial decision that they make depends on them being willing to sell. How do you help people overcome that mindset shift that, freedom comes from the financial impact that we can have on our businesses and those around us?
So my story is interesting. I'm gonna take you through it as quickly as possible here, and I'm gonna miss a few things. So if you have some questions after, feel free to ask. But I grew up in a house where we never knew that we didn't have money. My father was a broke entrepreneur, is how we joke about it in this day and age. But back then, like my mom would call it a rabbit hole, like a black hole. Actually, is what you call it, like the idea of like maintaining your business through money is the idea here, right?
Right,
Because my
right,
dad
right,
was
right.
constantly like struggling with money, but like we didn't know as kids, we didn't know we had a vacation home in Tennessee where I reside today. Actually, not in the home itself, but up in the same property. I bought my own land up here, but you know, I digress. Like we had four wheelers and golf carts, and he would buy us paintball guns, and we'd go out shooting hoops on the weekends, and we played sports. Even though we were homeschooled, we were in all the best leagues that they paid for out of their pocket to get us into, and we had hot meals. And you know, looking back, it's funny because my mom will say, "You remember all the subs we ate from Gabriel Sub Shop?" You know, and I'd go, "Yeah, I absolutely do." And she would then say, like, "Don't forget your dad like traded that out. He printed all their menus, and they gave him like lifetime access to food." And so she would like explain this to us as we got older, like, and he did too, to an extent when he was still here on this earth. But they would say like, this is how, those are the days that we didn't take a paycheck, and so we fed you guys, like, in our community provided, and the connections that we had, we worked through it together with them. And you know, like I learned very quickly in the idea of like my dad being a broke entrepreneur that like he had this thick network that cared so deeply for him because of who he was, how he helped other people and didn't just mooch off them or ask them to buy his stuff, you know, but said supported, prayed for, loved on, you know, and lived with these folks like through their best and worst times. And so we never felt the stress of money like I'm sure my parents did. We never noticed that we were out of it. We still got our allowance every week when we did all of our chores and whatnot, and went down to the store and bought some Pokemon and basketball cards and some new shoes or a skateboard every now and then. And life just kind of existed. And as soon as I turned 18, well, I was 17 actually when I moved out, I jumped into the touring scene. I was in a metal band on Warner Brothers Records. We started just like by ourselves, though, self-published and released album, which we sold to Pluto Records, an indie label that sponsored us and helped us with tours for a couple of years. And then they sold us to Warner Brothers. It was an incredible experience, my first in business, if you will, and in sales. There's a lot of sales stories inside of my music career as well, too. But point of me telling you all that is that I remember being in really good shape, thank God, but losing weight on tour because we ate once a week, and and like everything else went to gas money and pay, you know, making sure we had money when we got home to pay for the van stuff and give everybody a few bucks to live off of to pay rent. And you know, like I remember those days. And then they translated, you know, as we had all the success, things opened up a little bit more. You start making some money, things feel a little bit better. But then I left that world and started selling copiers, and I was eating out of cans again for 4 years almost, every day struggling with money. It was insane. And I remember thinking like, well, I'll just call my dad. He'll help me out. Oh my God, that was my favorite first call ever, to ask for help. And my dad's like, "Who do you think I am, bro? Do you?" First and foremost, I'm not one of, you know, your friends' dads that's got unlimited wealth. You know, like I'm not that guy. Don't call me. Call them and see if they'll do you a favor. And secondly, like the best I can offer is like you can come over for dinner once a month with your wife if you'd like. Otherwise, like you've got to work your way out of this. I just don't have that for you. And I thought that was some of the best lessons that I ever learned, because I know that my father, if he could, he would. But also at the same time, like the way he taught me through his own struggle was extremely viable to my success, because my dad made it very clear to me, you need to do better than me. You need to have money. You need to understand the value of money, and that it goes beyond this idea of like just paying the bills, but that it gives us happiness, it gives us peace, it gives us joy and fulfillment. It allows us to go on vacations. It does things for us that, you know, we don't tend to use as metrics in that whole concept. So fast forward a little bit, I start making a ton of money, and I mean I blow up. You know, I went from making $27,000 a year to all of a sudden I made 190 grand my first six-figure year through sales. And can you imagine, right? And I think like even me, sometimes I think back at it and I go like, man, I what a feeling, what an intense year that was. And where I went from like, I don't think I can put new brakes or oil in my car, to I could buy 10 of these cars cash if I wanted to, and I lived frugally through that time. I had a ton of money, but it did not fulfill me and the things that I was looking for. And by the time I was 27 years old and I literally had $1 million, um, I tried to kill myself and I failed. I'm a statistic. I'm a low chance of survival, and just to this day, it stops me in my tracks when I think about it. And I become extremely grateful for what I have, even if I'm stuck in a bunch of problems in my current seasons or wherever I'm at when I'm talking about things are great. I always stop and I just thank God for his provision over my life and the grace that he showed me in those moments. And so I woke up that day. I was 2014, just about 2015, and I woke up that day. And that day was the last day that I spent like glorifying or turning money into some kind of like God or idol. And instead I started to realize like it is the gateway is what it is. But if we manage it effectively, if we use it in a way that is allows us to be good stewards of that money that we've been given, and we don't look at it as like some kind of right but a privilege, it becomes something that no one else sees money as, and that's that 1% thinking, right? The person at the top. And so, and it's the rebel. It's the person that bucks the system and says, "I'm not going to do it like everybody else." But that's it. That's my money journey in a nutshell. And so, since then, like, I've always been good with money and good at making money. But like in your entrepreneurial career, especially if you want to run a super successful business, you're going to lose your ass on money. Like you have to. And if you're not, like if you're too frugal or if you're too safe with it, you're not going to build what you want. I think the problem is a lot of people see like a solopreneur make 2 million a year, selling courses and like, oh man, I want to do that too. I can do that too. And what they don't see behind the scenes is the text messages those people send out in year two when they're not making any money because everybody bought their stuff and no one's buying anything else. And then it's like, oh, I think I have to go do something else now. And because like money doesn't sustain you the way you think it does, right? It's the people within the community that pay you that money that actually sustains you. It's the people that are paying for your product, for your service, for what it is that you've built that sustains you. And so if we put all this emphasis on money as the number one motivator and ultimately the flag for success, I promise you, you'll lose. But instead, if you're like willing to risk it, if you're willing to lose everything in the process, you might, you might, and you got to be prepared for that. So don't take this advice as like, if you do this, you will be successful. But it is the idea that I am only where I am today because I've constantly set back. And instead of saying, ooh, that's scary or that's risky, I've said that leads to more peace, more freedom, but it has a lot of risk involved and a lot of discomfort on the way. Let's do it. I'm down. And money is always at the forefront of those decisions.
I love that. And I think that, that money does give us freedom and it gives us that ability to show our gratitude in so many different ways. Because when we are able to not just fund ourselves, but then to be able to give back in certain ways, back to our communities, to support other people, to, fund our children's futures, it's amazing what money can do for you and being willing to accept the fact that we are going to go through some tough times. We are going to go through losses. We are going to have those hills and valleys. I love that you used the course creator as a great example because what I find, and I don't know if this is maybe something that you see as well, is a lot of people don't see how much money people are spending behind the scenes to be really visible, and they're investing a lot. All the dollars that are coming in are being reinvested into the business, and that happens a lot for a lot of small businesses. They get to the end of the year and realize they haven't drawn a paycheck, and it's really difficult to feel that way, to go through some of those ups and downs. So, and I love your advice about not wrapping everything up in the income, right? In the money side of things. There are things that we can do to realign where we're spending our money. And it also depends on how fast you want to build your business. So I think there's so much to unpack in that perspective of how much, how the mindset around money for small business owners. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said when you made that mindset shift, it really solidified your your thought process around it. And it became more about who do I serve? How do I serve them? What can I give back? And knowing that when you do those things, the money comes with it. And a lot of people don't see it that way. And I appreciate you sharing that. So your money story is beautiful. I love it. And I love that you shared it with us. I'm just going to, a quick reminder out there. If you're enjoying this episode, please take a moment to like, follow, or subscribe to the podcast. Your support helps us reach more people with stories and strategies that inspire real connection. So, Dale, you know, tell me a little bit about a challenge you've overcome that most people don't see from the outside.
Oh my gosh, there's too many to list. Uh, it's the truth. It's like I don't think people really realize when they start a business or their entrepreneurial career what is out there to stop them. I think one thing like work overload, like that's one thing. So like you're doing all this stuff, and so every day you've got to like do the monotonous tasks, and people say things like do the thing you hate, because that's what makes you money. But I've always like for me, I've taken that advice and then I've gone and done it and felt terrible about it over and over and over again. And I think it's a thing that nobody talks about. Nobody says like, there's an outlet to this, or we can fix this. And I just reframed it. I just started saying, okay, well, what if I fell in love with the thing I hate? What if instead of like hating it, I fell in love with it? What if I created ways for me to find purpose and feel meaning and distinctly be excited about
Mm.
payroll or like whatever I'm doing, and I just reframed that. And I think that it was one of the biggest struggles again, that like nobody really like gives you any clarity around. They just say no, just keep going. Like instead I reframed it for myself and just started falling in love with the hard things and the frog we gotta eat every morning or whatever they call it, and really just allowed it to be part of the thing that propels my success. And yeah, so like I wake up in the morning super early. I have a ritual, spending time with myself in the woods with God. I honor my family that way, especially my kids and my wife. And then like before I even fully start and integrate my day, I go right back up where those kids and my wife are sleeping. And I probably am annoying to some extent because it's like early, but like, I give each of them a kiss and I tell them something. And it's usually something I just whispered in their ear. And it's usually something that came to me from my devotion and my quiet time. And it's just like ritualistic. Maybe they'll never remember it, but it's that whole idea of how, how do we like this? Like it sucks waking up early. Fall in love with it. Fall in love with waking up early. It like find joy in the monotonous tasks. Like find the things that ultimately fuel that task to being something that is exciting and fun and that you can get behind and fall in love with. So
I love that advice. That is so that is so important. I think to really tap into that, and I'm gonna embrace that one. And I think when you were saying it, it reminded me of how I used to say I'm technologically challenged, and for the longest time, I feel like that kept me from really enjoying my work because I struggle with technology. And I finally came to the realization one day is like, I'm no longer going to say that. I'm going to overcome it. I'm going to learn as much as I possibly can. And if I struggle with something, I have somebody I can call. So I started filling my funnel, my connections. I don't necessarily feel like they're funnel as perspective from sales, but I started filling my network with people who I could call or I could offer support to so that if I have an issue, I can say, hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you help me out? And I think that the overall value of real shifting from I'm technologically challenged and I hate tech to, oh my gosh, this is so fun to overcome and figure it out. And I'm going to figure it out. And it became more of a challenge and something that I actually enjoyed. Like now when challenges pop up with tech, I'm like, let's do this. I dig in so I see what you're saying about flipping the switch, right? Flipping it from, oh my gosh, I hate doing this to something that you enjoy. and really look forward to. And when you start to embrace it, but I love the fact that you brought up your morning routine as well. I think that is one of the key elements to really enjoying life, enjoying your work, is how we start our mornings. Mornings really matter. And I would love to ask you just to kind of talk a little bit more about how your morning routine plays into your mission, how has that really become part of your experience, and how you support your clients and your audience.
I think it goes even beyond mornings. It's this idea of like allowing. So I believe that the early bird eats better is the
Mhm.
idea that like the person that can gain mental clarity and be excited to be up at 4 or 5 a.m. or and I do want to caveat, I want to say that there are seasons in your life too. Like I've had seasons in my life where I'm just tired and even if I go to bed at 9 p.m., I can't wake up at 4 a.m. for some reason. And so it's also important to like listen to your body and understand like what's going on with yourself and to take that into account as well too. I think there are these small hacks though that people don't talk about. People say things like go outside and get direct sunlight and you'll wake up easier. I'm like, buddy, it's 4:30 in the morning. There's no sunlight. But there are noises, like instead of your alarm going off with all these crappy signals, there are ways to like tame your brain essentially and tell it it's time to get up without it being something that it dreads, right? Like, here's a thought. Someone taught me this. They said, "You're if you've ever hit snooze, your brain over time becomes very used to that, and it's like a habit now. And anytime you've hit snooze for the 2 years you've done it, in year three, it's now just like normal, and so you'll hit it in your sleep and won't even wake up. And
Oh.
so like changing the noise of your alarm." Or, because some people will be like, oh, I put my phone like way far away from my bed. And then I just tell myself, you got to get up. I'm like, buddy, you tell yourself you got to get up all day long. Like, we all know how that works. There are going to be days that you just don't want to do it and you're not going to do it. People like to highlight the one time they did it instead of talk about the 7 times they did it. And so I have found like some of the best things are just to like have a salt lamp in the room that you flick on and have again noises you're not used to hearing that wake you up, but also provide a little bit of peace, stability, and like your morning routine. And I just think it's like the tone for the day. Like it's a crappy, monotonous, rainy day today. We just launched our Covenant product. It's a monthly service that we're offering for coaching instead of $16,000 to $18,000 investments into yourself for coaching. I'm going back to my roots of like, let's just help everybody. And we're charging $100 plus a month for people to jump in, have access to us, get all the creative workshops in, learn the Rebellion for outreach tools, for sales process, for funnels, for closing, and just give people more access that also like brings them in person. We're sending stuff in the mail too, which is really fun, right? So we're sending these boxes with stuff inside of them. And like the vision for this doesn't come from waking up every morning. The vision from this comes from like allowing yourself to be in a routine of creativity and of like excitement and passion and worth, self-worth especially. And so like on this crappy, rainy, cloudy day, it's like we launched the greatest product that we've ever launched in order to change the lives of people, sellers, entrepreneurs, business owners everywhere. And you'd probably be demotivated, like looking out here and seeing it raining and it's kind of dreary today. It's a little cold on top of it, but yeah, I'm just in a constant state of gratitude and not like the buzzword version of that, but the kind that is grace that is provided to me through my Lord and Savior, and ultimately the person I give all credit to, and inside of, and I should say person, the entity, the thing that created me, that I give all credit to in all things in my life. And because of that, I say, thank you for waking me up this morning. Thank you for giving me a problem at 10:25 today that I'm not going to be able to fix. And it's going to drive me insane. Thank you for these things because I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still active. I'm still doing things. I still have a vision. I'm still excited about my life. I'm still excited to see my wife every day. I'm excited about next year with her, the year after that with her. I'm excited to watch my kids grow. I'm excited to hear their ideas, their stories. I'm excited about their bad attitudes. I'm excited about somebody cutting me off on the road and flicking me off. I'm excited to like be in these moments where I can show love like it's been shown to me is the thought process. And I think it just goes well beyond, not to get super philosophical here, but it just goes well beyond your morning routine and what excites you. And, you really have to tether yourself to your existence and where it comes from. And without that, I just don't think people can really achieve the things that they want to achieve unless, they just come up with some really great idea and get lucky, as folks like to say, which just doesn't, to me, there's no strategy in that. And also, those are the same people that write memoirs at the end of their life that say, I hate that I did what I did and built what I built. I have nothing, it's crazy to me. So it's like, do we learn from these things? So, again, not to be super deep and philosophical here, but I think those are the parts of the context of these answers that nobody gives. And so I'm
Mm.
hopeful someone hears that and hears the context and the reason why I'm saying the things that I'm saying and understands that like life is not about your money and your motivation in the morning. Like life is about you have been given a gift. You have been created in brilliance. You are perfect just the way you are. You are loved. You have things that some people would die for. And none of us wake up in gratitude to that. So going back to that word, right? But I think it's important to just understand that the morning routine is not going to fix you. It's your heart.
Yeah. And we all have access to it.
Truth.
We all have access to that love, that grace, that gratitude. We all have access to it. This simple act of grace in our lives changes everything. So I love how you are embracing that. I also love the fact that you are calling people in the sales rebellion to desire to be legendary. And that's something we're going to talk about in a moment. Let me just make a quick PSA here. If today's conversation got you thinking about your brand, your message, or how you're showing up in the world, come check out the Brand Success Hub. It's my on demand resource center packed with tools, trainings, and templates to help you get clear, consistent, and confident in your brand. And Dale has agreed to give us a 10-minute teach that you can find only in the Brand Success Hub. So just head on over to 30secondssuccess.com and click on the hub, and I'll see you on the inside. So Dale, let's talk a little bit about the idea of being legendary. I think that is something that speaks to my heart because I love helping people really embrace the idea of legacy and what they're building in their brand, and being legacy driven is about what are we leaving behind? What kind of impact do we want to have on the world? So talk about your use of the word legendary and helping people have a desire to be legendary. What does that mean for your audience, for the people that you work with, for those sales rebels that you are building and creating in this world?
Yeah, I like the idea of choosing legendary because I think it attaches itself to the word excellence really well. And so like we don't build or train better salespeople, we build better people is the idea of what we do with the sales rebellion. So it's, to me, it's this idea of kind of marrying the concept of rebellion, your rebellion, and how that looks in your life. I think we're all in sales is the thing here. So like some people might see me as a sales influencer, but like first off, I'm not an influencer to anything. I'm just again a product of grace and somebody that's been given a stage. Ultimately, there's not even a spotlight. I mean, as a matter of fact, most people hate what I have to say about sales, but I think that a teacher sells structure. I think that like a broker sells a network. I think that a buyer sells themselves. I think these things are and these are just things I've repeated for the last 10 years of my life over and over again. That we're all in sales. Like my first sale was convincing my mom to let me stay up past 9 o'clock. That was my first sale ever, right? And so I think that like life is sales and sales is life. And there's Daniel Pink's got a book about it. There's a lot of people out there that say this all the time, but I don't think that we repeat it enough. I don't think that we're bought into it enough because we say it and then we come out with a book that says like how to convert this to that. And it's like, no, well, it's not really about that, guys. It's about this idea of getting people so bought in to themselves that they buy into you. And so if a person sees the word choose legendary, they think, man, I want to be a legend. That sounds dope. And they're bought into the idea of that. Like, what is a legend? A legend is this thing. A legend is the rebel. It is the person that looks at the world, the status quo, the standard of things and says, I would like a little bit more from my life. Even if it's just half of a percentage point. I would like a little bit more. I would like a better relationship with my children. I would like, and especially if they're like a mixed family, I'd like a better relationship with my stepchildren. I'd like a better relationship with the people around me that hate me. I'd like to pursue that. I'd like to be able to know my competitors in my industry better. I'd like to like all these things that people just don't think about it, but ultimately, like they're kind of on our mind as rebels. They're kind of on the mind of the person again that's bought into themselves, that sees that word legendary and thinks correlates it to excellence and thinks I want that. And by thinking that way, by feeling that way, they come and join and do what we're doing. They come and invest their money. They spend hundreds of thousands of dollars with our organization, and then we reward them with the idea of here's the accountability to these things. Here's the playbook as we have designed it for ourselves. Change this, change that because of who you are and what your personality looks like, and start your own rebellion in that process. Choose this idea of legendary, of climbing to the top of the mountain instead of settling and building your home and planting your garden and being like, I made it, I'm here. Instead, to be the person that walks up behind you onto that mountain where you go, oh, hey, I saved you a spot over here. And, where are you going? As they keep walking and they turn to you and say, there's like 20 more mountains out there. I got to go see the tops of these too. And really, it's that concept. It's this idea of like, do you live because you want to live? Right? Or ultimately, are you just going through the motions of life, doing what people tell you to do, retiring at some point and dying, right? Like, and 90% of my dad's friends all sold their businesses, lived for 3 to 4 more years, and died of brain cancer or something terrible in their life because of stress, anxiety, treating their bodies like shit for so many years. And it is such a crazy thought to me that we have, as a generation, and as a society, even have not woken up to this and said, man, this is not cool. They say the average male life is like 71 or 2 years. Well, guess why? Like, they don't tell you why. They say, well, because you die. Like, no, no, no. It's because we have cultured this idea of modern slavery to the way that people think about work, to the way that people think about really like worshiping the dollar and this idea of commerce and capitalism. And it's insane to me. And I'm not like anti these things to any capacity. I'm just the person that's not asleep and not making the bad noise and sheeping my way through life. I'm saying no. If I want to spend 30 hours this week with my family and the rest of it on work, that's what I'm going to do. And there's nothing you can do to stop me. And that doesn't even include the weekend. Like, I'm going to do that. And if there's repercussions, if there's consequences, I'll suffer them. It's that simple, right? Like, the idea that we choose constantly to just like be more comfortable instead of getting uncomfortable. Okay. And I hope that's enough to really like spell it out.
Oh my gosh. We are like stopping right there. I love that. I love that. I just love how committed you are to changing how you show up in the world and how you want others to show up in the world. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think there's so much depth in that. And you're absolutely right. It's the decisions that we make that are going to make the impact, that are going to allow us to have the lives that we want to live, as opposed to just living life.
Yes.
And I think it really matters, right? So we need to be impact driven. We need to be focused on what we really want and how we're going to get there. And whether the decisions that we make are going to cost us or grow us. And I think that that really matters. And I think some of the choices that we make matter as well. So, Dale, I could keep talking to you for hours. I think I love what you shared here. I'm excited to have you in the Brand Success Hub with your 10-minute moment. Please, what's the best way for people to connect with you and go deeper into your work?
Yeah, really go to salesrebellion.com. You can check out the Rebel Covenant. You can check out the Refuge. It's actually a free community that you can join as well too if you just want to come and get more involved with the Rebels in general. There's our arcade where they can go and buy playbooks on how to do things like send crumpled letters or empty donut boxes to people to get their attention and set more meetings. There's a lot of really fun stuff there. And if you want to follow me on any social media platform, really they're all good. And I'm about to really ramp up my presence on a few of them because up until now I've just kind of like been there and my following has bled into those spaces. But it's time, so I'm going for it. But if you want the consistent stuff I put out, head to linkedin.com/in/copy warrior, and you can follow me in the feed.
Copier warrior. I love it. So before we go, what final thought or encouragement would you leave our listeners with today?
I would just tell people to remember that the most important thing is what it is that they're building from the legacy perspective. It's not the moment right now either. It's what the moment affects in the future. I think that that's a huge piece of the puzzle for most of us that we don't quite think about too often is what will this decision affect down the road? How will I manage this decision in the future? What consequences are attached to it? What discomfort, what risk, ultimately what good as well too. I think a lot of the time we just say yes because we're saying yes to stuff and we say no because we're saying no to stuff instead of really thinking about what does it look like 20 years from now because of this no or this yes. And really the rebellion is built around that hope that the idea of us being able to see what the future looks like for ourselves through our own lens without fear and ultimately through this idea of trust and faith is really what brings us to the success that we deserve to have and that we've been called to achieve in the first place. So I would just tell people on top of everything that I've said, like don't forget that these decisions don't just affect the morning tomorrow at 4:30 when you wake up or the evening when you finally sit down for the first time with your family to have dinner, but they will be moments in time that will define the outcomes decades from now and for generations behind you that are learning from you. So choose to rebel.
Love it. Thank you so much for joining us on the 30 Second Success podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss next week's inspiring conversation. Until then, stand in your brand, trust your voice, and remember, success is just 30 seconds away.